last speaker is Kinga Göncz, and she is a member of the European Parliament, but she has been a minister in her country, Hungary. She was Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2006 till 2009, but she has also been on other ministerial points. She was Minister of Youth, Family and Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities from 2004 till 2006. She is currently the Vice Chair of the EP's Committee on Civil Liberties and Home Affairs. She was Director of Partners Hungary, a member of an international network of organizations involved in teaching creative conflict management and the techniques of democracy, negotiation and change management in 1994-2002. She is a doctor of medicine, which is interesting. We have lawyers and we have people from geologists and so it's a wide range of skills we have here. And I could keep on reading from her interesting background, but she is going to give us a talk under the heading From the Wars on the Balkans to the Nobel Peace Prize, the soft power of the European Union. The chair is yours.
Thank you very much, and also thank you very much for the invitation and the very kind introduction. I think it's quite typical in our region that people are coming from different professional background to politics, like Mr. Constantinescu did also. I have a very easy job now to continue the sentences of Mr. Constantinescu and also Mr. Frattini, who mentioned at the end of his speech Europe as a global player and also the need strengthening this role for Europe as a global player in this field. I was choosing this title because I think what we see quite often discussing the need, the responsibility for an immediate intervention in mass atrocities, in war situations, but we mostly quite rare that we are also discussing issues which are connected with maintaining peace, with creating structures which can contribute for long-lasting peaceful coexistence of ethnic groups or groups of societies also on a longer run. And I am also quite critical with the European Union. I also would like to speak a little bit about the limitations that we saw very well throughout the Balkan War. But after a long period when Europe was more or less paralyzed and was not able to intervene, I think it contributed a lot to the development of the European structures in one hand. In other hand, I really hope that now the European Union can contribute to a long-lasting peace in the Western Balkans. And if you don't mind, I would like to mention also some personal aspects. I am coming from Hungary. Being Hungarian, the former Yugoslavia was an immediate neighbor of Hungary. Still, 3 of the successor states are neighbors. It means that Hungary was very much involved into the war. We heard the military airplanes flying over Hungary. We also heard the bombings. There were many refugees coming from the former Yugoslav states throughout this decade of the war. And it was a kind of surprise for us living in a socialist or communist regime. The former Yugoslavia was the country we were envious of, having a little bit more freedom, economic freedom, freedom of travel, and so on. And it was also a model because of the good coexistence of the different ethnic groups. And I think being Italian, you might have had the same experience. you also mentioned that I am a medical doctor. At that time, I had very good colleagues, Yugoslav colleagues. We were spending time together in the psychotherapy field from Serbia, from Croatia, and they were very good friends. We even didn't discuss who is from Serbia, who is from Croatia. Later on, we realized. And I remember that I met some of them after the war. Just some years were in between, but the whole climate changed a lot. Some of them died. Also, those who survived these wars were not able to communicate with each other. They could not continue this very good professional cooperation, which was very typical in former Yugoslavia. And it happened, this change happened, even if not overnight, in a very short time. In 1980, Tito died, and Milosevic came into the power in 1989, starting a Serbian dominance in the country. And it, in a very short time, it caused these separatist movements. Nationalism was growing from a country where nationalism was not well known. It might have been also under the surface earlier, but it was absolutely not visible, and it was possible to overcome earlier. So I think it is one of the learning points for us, that it might happen also in a country which is a multi-ethnic country, might happen during a short time if nationalism is growing, and it can provoke also nationalism in other parts, or other ethnic groups or other parts of the country. If we speak about prevention, I think it is one of the most important learning points, that we have to be careful with nationalism in a very early stage. We cannot wait until it is very dangerous. It is turned into a war situation. I don't want to speak about the different aspects of the war in the different Yugoslav states, because I think you have covered it yesterday quite widely, and I think it is quite well known. Just seeing the role of Europe, or the lack of European intervention, it is interesting to see that when first Slovenia and Croatia declared independence, Europe, or the EU and the EU countries, didn't want to recognize this independence. There was a very strong tendency to see Yugoslavia as a whole. The fear was very clear at the beginning that if it might happen that different states can define or declare their independence in the European soil, it might serve as a precedent. And we know that in many European countries, it is still a fear that some ethnic groups, some parts of the countries might follow this type of precedent. And you also might know that still there are 5 EU countries which haven't recognized Kosovo as an independent state because of the same reason. Although Europe made huge efforts to somehow to pacify the region, to mediate in these situations, it caused always a difficulty that it was not possible for some member states because of domestic political reasons to recognize. I think we were sitting together in the Council of Foreign Ministers when we have been dealing with and trying to push forward. It was also very difficult for Hungary to recognize the independence of Kosovo, being the immediate neighbor of Serbia, which sent the message that it is unacceptable for Serbia. And we also had a quite large Hungarian community in Serbia, and there were also fears that it might be the victims, if they might become the victims if Hungary recognizes the independence of Kosovo. There were serious dilemmas, I think, in all of the countries because of domestic political reasons. So it was very clear that Europe was very hesitant, very slow. When the military conflict was breaking out in Bosnia, then Europe clearly refused to intervene militarily, and then it was the UN peacekeeping forces which tried to not intervene but be present, knowing that Srebrenica happened. in a situation when there were very small Dutch military troops who were not authorized but were also not able to intervene in the situation. Now it is still Netherlands is one of the countries which is very critical with the developments in the region, and watching very carefully how much these countries are prepared for EU membership and EU accession, having this very traumatic experience, which really traumatized the whole Dutch society. It is still very much present in their experience. So these were the first steps. Europe could jump in just when the Dayton Agreement was brokered, the Dayton Peace Agreement was brokered, and had some role for Bosnia-Herzegovina, which was brokered by Mr. Holbrooke. It was an American brokered peace agreement. Europe had a little bit more role in the Ohrid Agreement. It was later when it could contribute to setting up a more peaceful coexistence in Macedonia with the Albanian minority. And I think it was a very important start where the European Union started to contribute to structured development. It was not just brokering or mediating the agreement, but also setting up guarantees for future representation of the Albanian minority. And I think this was a turning point from an immediate intervention from mediating a kind of peace in a situation to more building structures, building long-lasting organizational situations which can then maintain the peace in a region which is a very difficult region, we all know. If we go through the development of the European Union side, the Balkan War and the Balkan conflict was the one which contributed a lot to the development of the European Union as well. It was somehow the provoking factor of the common European foreign and security policy. Before that, and the beginning of the Balkan conflict and the Balkan War, all of the member states had their independent foreign policy, and there was not enough coordination of this foreign policy, and there was basically no security policy. It was more the responsibility of NATO, and most of the EU countries are also NATO members. Not all of them, there are some independent, but most of them. So Europe had the impression that, there was no need to set up this type of common European foreign and security policy. And it was the starting point to develop this. It was also it was also which led to the development of the Lisbon Treaty in terms of having a High Commissioner who is responsible. There's one person who is responsible also for European foreign policy. Again, the member states are just giving up part of their sovereignty in terms of foreign policy, but it is still, there is a structure which is this common European foreign policy. There's one person who is responsible for this. And Cathy Ashton has now, is having a very important role in terms of helping to come up with a kind of agreement between Belgrade and Pristina. It's a very interesting process. It was the most difficult point after the Kosovo War to set up a dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. First of, at the beginning, Serbia also not accepted Kosovo to be around the table, to be represented around the table in the regional cooperations under its own name. It could not be called Kosovo. EULEX could just, we all remember this, that EULEX could represent Kosovo, not the Kosovo politicians, and it could not be called Kosovo. It was the very first step forward, and also the mediation was started with a more technical questions. Everyone wanted to avoid to discuss the status question, which is a very sensitive issue, still a very sensitive issue. The EU is still declaring that it is not a requirement of the accession to recognize Kosovo, the independence of Kosovo by Serbia. But what is the clear expectation of the European Union is to have a dialogue which leads to a good coexistence. It is called, it is EU language, the good neighborly relations, meaning that is a normalized relation between Kosovo and Serbia, but also with the other post-Yugoslav states, because almost all of them are having some disputes over the borders. There were no clear borders inside earlier. And since they are independent states, it was also a major question to come up with clear borders. So what Europe could do, in one hand, developing its own structures and also contributing to the peace process in the region, mainly starting with the implementation of the peace agreements, implementation of the Dayton Agreement, implementation of the Ohrid Agreement. I am just watching my time. I think I should finish in some minutes. It is also interesting that Europe, the EU, defined its priorities for the future, in which fields can intervene. And there is a minor military aspect of this, but it's a minor issue. It is just a commitment of the member states saying that if it is absolutely necessary, they are willing and able to mobilize around 50,000-60,000 military personnel for immediate or almost immediate intervention in crisis situations. But what is more important for Europe, it is rule of law missions, meaning that providing experts in the field of judiciary, in the field of justice, helping these countries in the way of EU accession, to set up independent judiciary, to set up systems which can guarantee a rule of law system later on in one hand. In the other hand, it's also very important, contributing to police missions, again providing police officers, which are present now in more countries. In Bosnia-Herzegovina, it also is true for Macedonia and also part of EU-LEX, which missions are policing, but at the same time training police officers of the given country, which means that there is a transfer of responsibilities more and more from the EU police mission to the police mission of the country itself, and being prepared for this type of missions, also contributing to a public administration which is a viable public administration running a democracy. And since the European Council declared that the whole region is having a European perspective, it was declared first in 2003, and in 2010, the European Council also declared that also Kosovo has a clear European future or perspective. It means that the whole region started to move toward the European Union membership, and on this path, from this moment, the Copenhagen criteria, which were designed for the previous accession round, are also valid for these countries, which means economic transformation of the country to a market economy, to a viable market economy, democracy, setting up democratic institutions with checks and balances, the independence of the judiciary, the independence of the media, fight against corruption, which is a very important issue in this region. The good neighborly relation, as I mentioned, which means that they should sort out all of their debates before they can really join the European Union. And there is one more very important aspect. it is the visa-free regimes. And seemingly it was the most the strongest motivating factor for these countries, where the political elite was able, and if it was your field, you have been working on this quite a lot, the visa-free regime is something which is very important for the citizens. Therefore, those political elites which were not able to cooperate in any other fields in terms of rule of law, democracy, and so on, they were willing and they were able to cooperate in preparing the visa-free regimes for their countries. So also Bosnia-Herzegovina was very successful and received now all of the countries except Kosovo are having this visa-free regime, and Kosovo is also receiving its roadmap to the visa-free regimes, which is this motivating factor. So I think Europe is having a very complex tool set, let's say, to contribute to the long-lasting peace, democratization, and rule of law system of the region. And I think it is a key what we have to take into consideration, that immediate intervention when there is a threat of human rights, it is absolutely necessary. But it is equally important to utilize the so-called soft power of Europe to maintain the peace. Whole EU is a peace project. Basically, it was started as a peace project between Germany and France, and it had the same role with the former socialist countries, let's say Central Eastern Europe and the Baltic countries, and now it has the same role in this war-torn region, in the Balkan region. It is a very, very long road. If you can imagine to start with wars over territories, ethnic wars, toward the European concept of race equality, European concept of non-discrimination, the same from these fights for the borders to the European concept of Schengen, where there are invisible borders, which is, I think we have to rewrite the mindset of the people as well. It is very difficult to think about non-existing borders in a region where the main question is where the borders are, whether or not one province belongs to a country or is independent, or what happens with this. So I think it's a long process, but I think it is something which might contribute to the longer lasting peace in this region. So thank you very much. I finish. I hope that we will have some time. There are many other aspects. Thank you.
Fascinating to listen to you give us an insight into the complexities of the Balkans, which only become apparent or visible with proximity. And I thought it was also interesting to hear you talk about the way in which the European Union is changing its structures and norms, working norms, learning from its involvement with the peace process in the Balkans. And this is of course important when it comes to work in the spirit you call for, and all our lecturers have indeed called for, that we should be striving at preventing rather than reacting. Now, it is almost 11 o'clock and we have very, very little time for discussion. This indeed would call for 3 or 4 hours open discussion, but we will take 1 or 2 comments or questions. There are 2 who have already given a sign. I think we will suffice with that. Please, there is a... oh, there are 3. All right, we'll have 3.
Good morning. My name is Helga Þórólfsdóttir, and I have a background in working in humanitarian action. First for the Red Cross in Somalia, and then I've been working also in peace intervention for the Icelandic Crisis Response Unit in Afghanistan. And I want to start by thanking for this initiative. I think it is a very, very important topic to discuss, this dilemma that we are struggling with all the time. And my question is, how can we, who intervene with force militarily for the good of others, consider the need of human rights, protection, and peace, take responsibilities for those people, civilians, soldiers, that are being killed and wounded in these interventions, especially when these interventions are done in the name of the so-called international community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think we'll have the other questions and comments now, before we give the lecturers.
My name is Benjamin Snow. I'm with the Hertie School of Governance. My question is specifically for President Constantinescu. You spoke quite a bit about the role of communism in limiting human rights, and kind of I wanted to ask about the rebuilding and the afterward, and since that time, Romania continues to rank very low and struggle with rebuilding civil society, and there's a heavy skepticism towards NGO and the kind of role of civil society in society, and towards volunteerism. How do you see the building of organizational capacity in civil society and that role since the fall of communism, and what do you see the role of the state and the role of civil society, and where do you see opportunities there? Thank you.
And the last question or comment?
Thank you. Let me get over here so I can see the panel. Thank you for a great panel. My name is Marifeli Perez Estable, and I was born in Cuba and live in the United States. My comment is to President Constantinescu as well. You started your talk by saying that the post-World War II order couldn't do anything about the many horrors that were happening behind the Iron Curtain. And so that led me to think about the geopolitics of protecting human rights because of the bipolar world and the so-called mutually assured destruction. It was difficult because it was an all or nothing world. After 1991, geopolitics still affect the implementation of humanitarian, respecting human rights, particularly in cases of horrific violations. But now we have to deal with China and Russia on the Security Council, the United States sometimes, countries, I think you mentioned, or it was the minister from, the former minister from Italy, Brazil, other countries. So I think that the geopolitics in our post-Cold War world is not perfect, but it is much more conducive to trying to address these violations.
Thank you very much. I think you would need 2 hours to answer in depth, but you only get 2 minutes to do it. So please, very briefly, if you all get a brief remark here at the end. Please, Constantine, let's go.
First comment, and I want to present in my communication the complexity of the problem. You reason it need many times. And why? Because we need more conferences. Because and especially we need a dialogue. Not only presenting the communication, but to enlarge in future conferences, I propose, the space of dialogue. In a situation we don't have a time for understand complexity, is a solution to focus about of very difficult cases. This case is Romania. Romania history of communist dictatorship in Romania and transition, post-communist transition in Romania is very interesting. Why? Because it was a single case where dictatorship decide to shut the protester. Students, my students, my family, all was protested in University Square, but not attacking institution, only cry for democracy, free election, and the army and security shutting. But in the next morning, 500,000 people occupied the street, and the dictatorship regime fall. But what happened in transition, what influenced it, and it is also an answer for you, influenced by what happened in communist regime. I evoked what happened in Chart 77 in Czechoslovakia, CORE in Poland, and including in Soviet Union, different civic society organization in Hungary also. In Romania don't exist because Ceausescu, Securitate, Police arrested before the possibility to do something. Why? Because was so important civic society in Romania organized in the condition and post-communist period when the former nomenclatura, the former member of secret police was in government. And the first, you remember maybe invasion of miners against the political party? No, against Bucharest University. Because Bucharest University, students especially, students Liga, represented the opposition. And what was the reason? The reason was to reinstall fear. Because the force of dictatorship regime, all dictatorship regime, coming from this fear, generally fear installed. And this feeling of liberty was very strong. Why? Because we need 7 years for first real democratic system. In this period, the main force for democracy, for the building a new type of democracy was civic society, not political party. I personally, I was elected president because I was rector of Bucharest University and I was a leader of civic society. I don't was members of political party. It was an association of different political parties, all orientation, including conservative, liberal, socialist, anti-communist party, accepting the main force civic society. Why? But what we need for solidarity, because word key is solidarity. This was example of Poland. This was an extraordinary example of Poland, solidarity. But for solidarity, we need a project, a common project, a cultural project. And in Romania, civic society acceded to present a project despite of the many problems frozen by communist regime, including, is a moment to talk about, including relation between Romanian majority and Hungarian minority after bloody conflict from century. We acceded to resolve using by cultural project, having a project for integration European Union, integration NATO, democratization society. And my first, last point, why now is a lack of solidarity in Romania? Because we don't have in Romania a real economical crisis. We don't have a financial crisis like in Greece or Cyprus maybe, or no, don't have in Romania. but we have a huge moral crisis. All people talk about. We don't have economic crisis, not political crisis, not respecting the law, all, but it's a huge moral crisis. Why? Because intellectual elite and civic society don't accede it after the moment of integration of the European Union to present a new national project, a new cultural project.
Well, our time is out. Would you like to comment?
Just very, very shortly, some words about Afghanistan. I am sure that Afghanistan is not the Balkans, but still I don't think that there is a military solution. It's absolutely sure that what is needed is much more a political solution and building up its own police, building up its own military forces, which can maintain a kind of peace, and also this development type of contribution, which has been done also by some of the countries. I think is the only solution to have a better human rights future for Afghanistan. We know that it is a very long process, and it goes back also to the other questions a little bit. That whole democratization is not a short-term project. What we see in all countries, neither in Hungary, nor in Romania, nor in other countries, it will not be also in other regions. Civil society development is one aspect, but it needs also time to have a strong enough civil society being strong enough to control the power and those who are in the power. I think it needs time. And also, just one more sentence that democracy is not perfect. There are all kinds of problems in all of the countries, including the whole European Union struggling with the crisis. I think it is still something which has the guarantee for working out solutions because of the culture of dialogue, because of the culture of negotiation, trying to find consensus or compromises. So I think what we have to do, we have to work on an ongoing basis on these issues and on these projects.
Thank you very much. Now, Franco Frattini has called my attention to the fact that he is sitting on the second panel and he will take up the issues there. Yeah. Now, you are two former foreign ministers. There we have the present foreign minister of Iceland, who is honoring us by attending the conference this morning. But thank you very much for your very interesting and inspiring talks.